Today we're going to show you how to build a step stringer for a deck that obviously doesn't have any steps coming down. To figure out how many steps you need, you're going to measure from the ground up to the mark of where the top of your steps are. That total distance divided by approximately 7 inches is what we use for our step stringers. So it's a 7-inch rise and a 10-inch run on the step stringer. The 10-inch run will determine how far out you'll come on your step stringers and how many steps you'll have. One more thing I want to point out is we mentioned before that on our step stringer we have a 10-inch run and then a 7-inch rise. Please check with your code officials and your local code enforcement to make sure that you have the appropriate rise and run. Different areas are going to have different regulations on what they want to see, but 7 and 10 is a pretty safe area to be in when you're cutting your stringers. So figuring out how to cut your step stringers, like I said before, we have a 7-inch rise and then a 10-inch run, and you can mark on your framing square to show you exactly where to cut these. Obviously we already cut this one out and figured out exactly how many steps we needed, so all the way down we mark. After you get one step stringer cut, we'll take this stringer and we'll place it on top of the other 2x12 that we're cutting out, and at that point we will straighten it out, and we'll use these screws to make sure that the step stringer is straight with the board underneath, so it doesn't have any type of crown, and it lines up perfectly once you get all the step stringers together. So now at this point we're lining it up. As he screws the board down, I'll adjust the tails so they're flush with this side of the board. After the board's secure and all the edges are aligned on that side of the board, we just simply trace our first pattern. Always use the first pattern for every board that you cut. That way they all stay consistent. So now at this point, after you have the stringer traced onto the board, you're going to take a circular saw and a jigsaw. You'll make as many cuts in as deep as you can with a circular saw, and you'll follow that up, finalizing the cut with a jigsaw. So now that you made all of your circular saw cuts, you're going to follow through with the jigsaw just to finalize the cut. Now we'll remove the set screws from our pattern board. So now that you have your step stringers cut and laid out onto the ground, some guys like to take each stringer and install them individually. We like to put our steps together as one complete unit and then install them that way. It seems like the structure in that particular install is a lot better than doing one stringer at a time. So we use a 2x6 at the bottom. Given our rise of our stringer, it's about 5.5 inches, and then we use a 2x8 up top, just because the back cut of the stringer we'll show you here shortly, it's a lot wider, and this gives it a little bit more structure up top as well. Something that's very important about when you're cutting the step stringers, this last cut on the step stringer, you need to make sure you cut 1.5 inches off, because you are putting an 1.5 inch board on here. If you don't cut the extra 1.5 inches off of the bottom of the stringer, obviously this will be out too far, and then your rise would be 1.5 inches longer than what it needs to be. So now that we have the board on here, we screwed 3 screws to the tails. That secures the bottom. So now we'll move to the top. Now that we have the top board in place, our steps are one complete unit. We don't have to worry about, again, hanging one individual stringer. They will stay together. There won't be any differences when you start laying the tread boards on there, or the riser boards, and they'll all come together pretty straight. Now to level out the steps, we have this as our high side. So we're starting from that side. We have a block over there supported. As he levels this out, I have a temporary block and a foot block down here that'll give me some support so it doesn't dig into the dirt. For the support, for the bottom support of the steps, what we'll do after this is we'll take our post hole digger and we'll dig a hole in this area and over here as well. Once we get it down to depth of 36 inches, we'll pour a footer inside of those holes, and then our 4x4 posts for our railings will go down into the hole. We'll then put block framing and we'll attach to that as well to make sure the steps are in place and resting on a footer so they don't sink or twist. And that concludes the step stringer cut and install. Come back to our next video. We're going to show you how to put step rail posts in, and then also the run and the riser decking boards as well. Thank you very much for watching.